This episode is brought to you by Deal. Managing a global team is complex. Deal makes it simpler with payroll, HR, IT, and compliance, all in one place. That's why over 35,000 businesses trust Deal to hire, pay, and manage teams worldwide. See how Deal works at deal.com/Adrian Tan to learn more. That's DEEL.com/ADRIANTAN. Deal, your forever people platform. Hey Ezekiel, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
For people who may not be familiar with what you do, how will you introduce yourself?
I just tell people that, hey, I'm an executive coach for scaling companies. It's really simple and straightforward like that. Fixes the umbrella thing, but also being quite targeted as well when it comes to saying.
But knowing what you do, I think that is really an understatement, because when I look at your LinkedIn, you do quite a fair bit of things, and it's really a very wide berth, but we can touch on to that later on. I'd like to understand a bit more about your personal journey to begin with. How did you get started and how do you landed into what you're doing right now?
Well, I think I'm one of those cases where I did not want to be here. It's more of when I left full-time career in 2020, my agenda for myself was I'm buying myself time so that I can give my life as a budding martial artist athlete a chance. I train and compete in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So when I left in 2020, I still had a consulting contract and executive coaching contract for my ex-employer for like at least another year, also to help out my successor. So that was like 1 year after. And then at the same time, because I was speaking in stages and meeting people from various industries over the 10 years that I was there was already like a lineup of consulting that was lined up for me afterwards. So you could say that it wasn't even really a choice. It was more of convenience. And it really came into more seriousness after those 2 years, where I started asking, well, what now that all of this stuff is done, how do I want to utilize my talent in a way that I'm never going to be bored? And that's kind of where the initial stages of most people who go into the self-employment life, in terms of like, then what do I do? How do I present myself, or whatever, all that other stuff. But it's really just asking the question, what do you want to do? And that's not an easy question to answer.
Until today, I don't really have an answer. I try to lean into things which I find I have more fun in doing. And also in things that, by virtue of me turning up, I already win half the battle.
Yes.
So I don't have to struggle.
Yeah.
So those are the kinds that I look at. But if I really have to pin it down, I don't have an answer as well. But I do sense that a lot of this came to you because of something you built up along the way. We'll touch on that a little bit more. But I also want to clarify, because executive coaching and consulting isn't the only thing that you're doing. According to your LinkedIn, you do a lot more. Could you expand on that?
So I'm an angel investor, but also advisor. Recently, I got signed up to be a mentor for portfolios of a VC, but mostly on the same topics. And then I do consulting for companies that are specifically founder mission-driven ones that are dealing with scaling, usually between the 10K to 100K a month range. And usually the problem for 10K to 100K a month is that they don't have a very strong core team. But asking for a core team means figuring out what your culture is, what your values are, where this company is actually going. So there. And then on the side, I also do executive coaching for people who are in careers in corporate, who want to climb those ranks, but they don't want to destroy their lives in the process. So I have a couple of those people as well. I mean, we all know that. We've been there. We know what it's like to devote everything to your career, and then you start seeing like, well, the other parts of my life don't seem to be going so well. So I have a little bit of all of those, and I'm also a part-time jiu-jitsu instructor.
So the first part of what you mentioned, I think, is very in line with what you have been doing from your early years in Mindvalley as a startup and all that. The executive coaching seems to be out of nowhere. How did that even come about?
So executive coaching, it looks like it's not, but as a CHRO in Mindvalley, which was like my last role, ever since my entire career inside that organization, I've put on many different roles and titles, from CTO, CPO, GM, CHRO, but the main thing that I was really in charge of during that entire time was leadership and culture. I was like the other hand of the founder in terms of crafting that culture and hiring and leadership and building them up. And if you're a company that grows so fast, you have no choice but to grow a lot of leaders from the inside. So I ended up having to go for executive coaching. So I did Marshall Goldsmith certification at some point in 2013, 2014. And then my unofficial main job was to grow leaders inside the company. So technically speaking, I've been doing it for a while, both inside, and I was also practicing outside, even when I was working there. I would say that out of everything that I am skilled at, I would say executive coaching and also coaching a leadership team into creating better habits is actually at the top of my list. That is the highest skill that I have. And it's not something that I'm in love with. There's a saying that, oh, follow your passion. I was like, no. I am talented and skilled at it. I'm not in love with it. But it seems to be the highest leverage item that I can see, like dealing with various organizations in the past 5 to 6 years. That skill is extremely important, especially when it comes to behavioral change or like an environment which is changing so much, especially tech AI companies kind of scenario.
What are some of the common challenges that your coaches come to you with?
So the first, if we're talking entrepreneurs, they usually come with problems like, hey, I feel like I'm spinning wheels and I'm working so hard, I'm running around doing so many things, and the output isn't showing from all the effort that I'm putting in, or my team is an absolute mess and I actually hate going to work inside my own company at some point. So usually that's what they start with. But when you figure out the real problem, no, the problem is you haven't decided what you want this company to be and who should be here. And that's usually the entry point. Like those three stresses, either scaling revenue is scaling revenue, too much mess, or I hate working for the company that I made myself. Those are the three main ones.
That really triggered me because I experienced the third one during my first company, and there was time I was just dragging my feet to the office. And even when I was in office, I wasn't doing anything. I was on Facebook the entire day. I was just buying time, hoping for 5 o'clock to come so I can get the hell out of the office. It is a very painful experience.
Yeah. It's really painful for founders too, because if you're making the business just for money, then it doesn't really matter. But if you're doing something because there's emotional attachment to what you're building and you feel either jaded by it or hurt by it, like you don't like the people that you're working with, there's no flow, there's no inspiration. And that comes across as how you behave and how you lead, how you make decisions, and then you're wondering why your company is stuck. It's like your company is stuck because you are stuck. That tends to be the case.
Do you also see many of your coaches going through the same sentiment or phase that you went through before? Because you mentioned in our previous briefing that you have this feeling of almost always overqualified or underqualified.
Oh, yeah. Ironically, recently, somebody asked me to help them to brand themselves. So founded their own agency and they're wondering like, hey, I am having difficulty getting clients or whatever. And again, they're saying either I'm too expensive or I'm overkill. Or like, no. I don't think it's because of underqualified or overqualified. Because you will always be underqualified or overqualified for the wrong people that you're talking to. And then the problem is they haven't decided yet who they want to talk to. And that's not a fast process. If you cast really nice photos, but you don't say much in your bio about what you want, you're going to end up with a lot of people swiping on you, but so many different kinds of expectations. And then if you try to narrow down your bio and be specific about what life you're making, then you're probably going to get a few people who are more aligned to that. If you're way too specific, you'll get nobody. So I try to work with people with that kind of notion that, hey, we're in a dating phase for you right now. Like this is your first time out in the world market kind of scenario, and you're testing out what flavors you like and what flavors you don't like. For people who are going to be self-employed for the first time, I would say that the first 1 to 2 years might be a very strong dating period of figuring out who you want to be serving. So you're going to have to go around and try a lot of stuff.
And in fact, I would say even prior to starting, you do have to start the dating process.
Oh, yeah.
And it seems to be the case for you because you were saying when it comes to you to go independent, you already have many gigs lined up, queuing at your door, hoping for you to say yes. I want to understand how big of a part do you think that really played in the success of your current journey?
I would say that, well, in my case, I did not, I don't really have the challenge of knocking on doors. I mean, a lot of people have the challenge of the confidence of knocking on doors. I'm the other way around. I knock on too many doors. So that's not necessarily the problem for me. So I would say that if you're a person who's a bit, risk averse and you're not very keen on experiencing a lot of rejection or redirection, as I like to call it, then having things lined up before you jump on the journey is probably a very smart thing to do, because it'll give you a sense of momentum, of confidence that, hey, I'm already practicing what I want to do. So you're more confident over time as opposed to somebody who just jumped in the middle of nowhere and then you got to figure it out from scratch. I think that would be very daunting for most people. So I would say that for most people, it would have been an advantage. For me, not so much. It's convenient in terms of keeping myself busy. In hindsight, now that I think about it, in my case, I think it would have been better for me if I didn't accept all of those, so that I could have gone more into introspection right away. What do I actually want from this? Because busyness can be a form of procrastination to thinking about the right thing.
That's really true. When I first started, I took on 5 assignments at the same. I almost killed myself.
Yeah.
And for some assignment, I started to cut corners and it came back and whacked me in the face. So it was really a very bad experience because you just didn't have time to think about whether you even want this assignment to begin with. You just want to sweep everything off the table into your pocket and eventually become very hard. But of course, that may also be something that our audience may not have the benefit of because they are still starting the journey.
Yes.
And I think it is very apparent that having those connections beforehand is very important. And as much as it may come second nature to you, for people who is entirely new to this game, do you have any strategies to share with them on how to build that network?
Yeah, so I would equate this to when we were training people who went into life coaching back in the previous industry. It's like they do the whole coaching certification and then suddenly they're out in the market and they don't know what to do next. Yeah, it's a valid concern. But I would always tell people that if you want to start this from scratch and you don't have an existing network, you're going to have to do the long way of do things first for other people so that you build momentum, because momentum is key, which is also why I don't want people to suddenly jump ship and quit their jobs like that. No, you do the self-employed consulting work even though you're still maybe in full-time. You do it on the side so you get your reps in so that people and then when you're ready to jump ship, let's say you're making money out of it already and you've built the chops, hey, I have my own semi methodology that is working and I have maybe a couple of clients that I've tried it with, then you jump. I would say that is a generally very strong advice, and I still do that to this day whenever I'm testing a new methodology. Like say I want to work with a company that is in a different industry. Like last year, I tried working with a company that was in the fashion industry. I was like, I have no idea how this industry works. So you know what? I'm going to do this stuff for you guys, pay for my booking fee, and then we explore the problem through a workshop. And if you're not satisfied with the workshop, you don't even need to pay me for that. They'd be crazy not to say yes.
Yeah, I think for people who have just started, and I managed to speak with many of them in Singapore when we go for meetup events and all, a lot of them don't really have that plan out. And even while they were gainfully employed, they were like, oh, I have a job, why should I even do anything? So they started out cold.
Yeah.
And it's just a very painful experience.
It
is
is
equivalent to playing a new game on hardest mode.
Yeah. When I left my full-time career and I had my own contacts already, it was still hard. So what more when you're starting from complete scratch? It's kind of crazy. But hey, I mean, the payoff is there, but I also know countless people who have given up on the portfolio career, self-employed journey simply because of how difficult it was. And it's heartbreaking to see that because it's funny, like they're extremely talented people. These are people who've had like decade-long careers. They're really good at what they do. And then you see them heartbroken with the attempt. I was like, yikes, that hurts.
I'm very certain in your journey as well, you might have stumbled across certain things, make some mistakes here and there. Are there certain lessons that you could also share with our audience? And what are some of the learnings that you actually got through from that to make your journey even better right now?
I would say that early on, sometimes doing things free at the beginning is a great idea, especially if you're not confident that you can solve the problem, but you want to give it a shot anyway. Doing things for free first and get paid later. It's fine. I think that is a good place to practice. Reps matter a lot before you start raising prices. Never ever burn bridges. And there's the so-called thing like, as my friend in McKinsey said, please, 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 for the love of God, never ever say, I told you so. Never, ever, ever say that. Have things written down on paper when it comes to payment-related things. Scope of stuff, I think, is okay to move that around, especially at the beginning. Like, you can have a fairly flexible scope. Like, hey, we're solving this problem and we'll work on it for as long as it makes sense. But when it comes to money, I think you really gotta be quite meticulous about details when it comes to payments, because collecting money as a self-employed person can become quite a fiasco if you're not careful. Other self-employed people are not your enemy. I would say that. Which, I mean, I do not have that problem, but I definitely saw that in some of my friends or clients who were self-employed, started their own business, and then they came to me like, they had that problem. They started seeing like other portfolio people or other self-consulting agencies as a competition. No, you guys are targeting very different people. He wants 1 million to 5 million a month kind of companies, and you want 1K a month to 10K agency owners online. The reason you're having a problem is because you haven't decided who you want to serve. Yeah.
Exactly. They're trying to be an ice cream truck.
And then I think the most important one that I've learned is, on a bad day, you'll think you're unemployed. On a good day, you'll think you're an entrepreneur. So it's almost paramount that you prioritize feeling good about your life and feeling confident about yourself. Like, you can't overwork yourself. You can't be neglecting your health, human relationships, whatever, because the moment your mood starts tanking, you start looking at the darker side of things rather than the brighter side of things. And on a good day, you're like a high-flying, super awesome consultant. It just depends on your mood on that day.
I read this somewhere yesterday that there's only 2 things you have to choose every morning when you wake up: to have a good mood or to be in a bad mood.
Oh yeah. And I would say that your family really matters in terms of support once you jump off the cushy net of employment. When we were employed, you knew that you were on a clock. You got to go to work and follow that schedule. And then suddenly when you're your own boss, this bed feels very comfortable. I don't want to leave it right now. Like, if you have good people around you in everyday life, like your family or your friends, just the fact that you look to your right and you see maybe your spouse sleeping, like, you know what? Because of you, I am not going to be lazy today. So you'd better have great people around you, especially at the beginning. People who encourage you to do this. Otherwise, you will give up on it pretty fast.
That's why many solopreneurs, some solopreneurs that I know of who may not have that support system, they would deliberately go and work in a co-working space.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you just have to get away from your place. You need to get away from your mattress. You need to get away from your sofa, your Netflix, everything.
Yeah, like some people can really work from home very well. Like when I was still handling technology, man, my engineers could work from home 4 or 5 days a week, no problem. But for me, the moment I step in through this door where I live right now, I just wanna relax. I wanna chill. Unless, of course, I'm gonna be speaking to somebody like you today, then it's fine to be here. But if I want to do deep work stuff, I can't be here. My brain doesn't work like that.
Some of the people that I get to speak with are also going beyond just being self-employed. They want to start a small business, they want to start some new ventures. As someone who has helped founders scale their business, I'd like to understand from your lens, what are some of the common pitfalls you see them encounter when building teams, and how do you help them avoid this?
Some of them would come when they have, okay, I'm done hiring just labor. I can't be the only person thinking about my business at this point. So I would say that I'm mostly talking about digital businesses, yeah? So like we're selling online stuff and mostly targeted at like Western world kind of markets online. They would say that the moment things get stuck, they're not trying to hire another pair of hands because it's easy to outsource technical work. But when they want their businesses to really start growing, you're starting to hire or look for another brain who thinks about your business all the time. And that means you're going to face that challenge of somebody else thinking about growing your business in a different direction or in a different way. Hire their first leadership team members or core team members with skills in mind. Please do not do it. You want to be looking for people who you don't mind arguing with all day. It's the same thing as me walking in a street of restaurants, and if I was walking by it by myself, I would probably go to the same 3 ones regularly. And I were walking down that street while we're talking, we might suddenly notice that, hey, there's that cat in the alley. Let's follow. And then we end up going into like, I don't know, an African restaurant. And then now we find out that, shit, wow, we now have a new cuisine that we like. That's how that's going to end up when you hire your first core leadership team people. You are hiring people who you are okay influencing your direction. And I don't think a lot of founders take it that seriously. They hire the wrong person. It kind of splits the business apart. It becomes like traumatic for them. And they don't want to hire another leader inside their team because they're scared of that. It's like a divorce that ended really badly. It's like, no, like it's because you didn't take it that seriously. I would say that is the most painful part that people come to me. They say they have a business problem. What they have is an interpersonal trauma problem.
And you also mentioned about many personal life issues that some of your clients actually come to you.
I have to deal with. Like I'm at a place where I have to deal with both of them because if you're a mission-driven founder, this business is not just a business for you. It is a manifestation of what you care about in your life. So that means your ego is tied to the business. We're talking about why you even started this thing, and your personal values become the spine of this company. So I can't help this company if I don't know you. And your dysfunctions become the company's problems. So inevitably, for some people, it's like, you have a problem with this leader and this leader. You know why? Because you have a problem with your wife. Because their behavior reminds you of your nagging wife or your mom. And now I have to switch gears and go into personal coaching so that we can work on this so that you can be more harmonious with your leader. That's a very simple example, but it happens a lot. Like, you don't want to hire people who are smart because you're scared that they might take over your business because of some weird thing that happened to you when you were younger.
That sounds more like therapy rather than coaching to me.
Well, I mean, I had to do a lot of that too on people. I am a counselor as well, and that's part of executive coaching too. You have to dig into everything. So I have to constantly remind people that, okay, I'm wearing your fractional COO hat right now. So we're talking about this. And then later on, I'll be like, tomorrow we're talking with me wearing your personal coach hat on, especially when it comes to like your human relationship side to do my job properly.
Are you able to share an interesting example of how addressing personal issues may help? Are there any more interesting highlight cases that you actually walk them through and really help them in the business outcome?
Okay, I mean, let's do a more positive example so that it's not all comedy, Black Mirror kind of scenario. So one of my clients before was wondering why she felt so empty running her business. But when she came to me with a problem, she was having like, oh, I have a culture problem, I have a team scaling problem, revenue problem. And I was like, after talking to her for a little bit, girl, you don't have those problems. Your problem is this is not the company that you want to run. And to be able to run a company that you want to run, you have to believe in it. You have to be running after something that you passionately believe in. And she was in aesthetics. And it was like, this is great. Like, you have a chain of businesses in aesthetics. This is fantastic. So what's uninspiring to you is the fact that you don't know why you're even doing this. So hypnotherapy on her for us to figure out that her biggest inspiration is the fact that her mom had cancer and her mom was the breadwinner of the entire of her family. But her mom always looked amazing, looked beautiful, always put effort in terms of how she looked. And it always made her feel extremely powerful and empowered in spite of the suffering and cancer. So that's what, and then when she figures out that that's what's actually driving her, you could see the tears in her eyes. Like, that's what, you're not in aesthetics, my dear. You're in the empowerment business. You're looking at this whole thing wrong. You are espousing beauty and aesthetics because you want people to feel powerful in spite of the difficult things going on in their lives. And after that, it was fairly simple. We just identify now what are the values of somebody who embodies that, which is somebody who cares about how they carry themselves, a certain level of dignity, respect, a bit of glamour, whatever, but still humility and all that stuff. Start building the entire company around that. It evolved within the span of like 1 year from barely breaking even at some point, but becoming a much bigger brand and growing the company by 60% in the next 2 years. Just because of knowing that.
For any outsider, one would think that actually nothing tangible has changed, but the perspective has changed.
The perspective has changed.
And that in itself is so powerful. I'm reminded of this story, I'm not sure how true it is. It's about JFK going to NASA. And the first janitor is asked, what do you do here? I clean the floor. I clean the toilet. And then the other janitor, what do you do? Oh, I put a man on the moon.
Yeah. Like, I'm part of the team that's putting men on the moon, which people will remember forever. It's something that a lot of people don't realize, that when you are the founder of a company or you're the CEO of a company, why you do things is almost everything. If you lose touch with why you're doing it, you become bored of the company. You don't come up with great ideas. Your decision making is very tactical, not strategic. And then you hire people who are at a certain level of enthusiasm. And you don't want to take risks. And all of those things kill or stagnate a business. So that's why my methodology for working with founders is almost always, I want to get to know you and why you're doing this so that we can build the business that serves you. You are not the one serving the business. This business should serve your direction in life. And just that perspective makes it, oh, I am not a slave to my business. This business should be serving my higher purpose or direction as the owner, as the founder, as the visionary. And that's really where my gifts shine the most, working with people like that.
Given your deep involvement with your clients, is it very draining on your own well-being?
Well, I guess one of the things that are very nice about me is I don't get tired of that stuff. Because for me, that is if I was an artist, my canvas is people. And I enjoy that stuff. The intricacies of the complicated nature of human consciousness and people in general. So everything is built around that. And I can only do that because of my genuine interest.
Yeah, absolutely. If you hate talking to people, that wouldn't work.
Yeah. Like, actually, I start all my meetings with my clients with that first. Like, before we talk about the business, let's talk about you first. Always you first. Because if you're not in a good space, we can't be talking about anything else.
One of the things you have also mentioned is you caution people against falling in love with their methodology, with their process, and I personally would even add with your own company. How do you stay adaptable and ensure that all this remain relevant?
Because nobody cares about your methodology. Everybody only cares about their problem. My perspective, luckily, has always been, if I'm not solving someone's problem, then there's no value being generated. And that's difficult for people who invent their own methodology, invent their own product, because they see it as, I am that methodology. This is me. Like, this coaching methodology is me. But that is the one thing that actually gets you stuck and you stop evolving from there. Whereas I am constantly researching, how do I solve this problem better, which I encounter mostly with clients. So I don't trademark any methodologies. I'll be the first person that I use a combination of Rockefeller habits, OKRs, maybe a little bit of like product management concepts, and then you go into executive coaching, hypnotherapy, and all that other stuff. Invent nothing. I just synthesize things and combine them so that it solves the correct problems. I'm problem oriented. And I think when you're problem oriented and you are thinking about, how do I solve this problem better, you will never ever get to the point where you're too arrogant, constantly feel like you're not enough. Underqualified. Yeah. So these days, admittedly, I would say that when I encounter a company like, I don't know where you guys are, you're in energy, I'm more likely to lean into, okay, just booking fee. Let's talk workshop first. We'll deal with follow-ups later on in terms of, we don't want to work together yet. And if you don't like how the workshop ended up, don't pay me, because that means I didn't do enough preparation. But I think in the long run, you gain more respect that way. Ask me again in 5 years. Maybe I'll be under a bridge.
For any of the founders that may be listening to this, from your perspective, at what point do you think they should start reaching out to a coach to assist them and to support them in their professional journey?
I would say try 3 times. Like, try breaking through your limit 3 times. Say they can't get past product market fit. Go ahead. Try breaking through it 3 times. After that, get help. Like, you messed up hiring somebody, core team member 3 times. After that, go get help. Because I think, and there's no scientific basis for this, hopefully after 3, that's enough for you to realize that this is really not working with me just doing this, you know? And I think there's a thing there where I like how my ex-boss said this. Entrepreneurs are like Olympic athletes. You don't see Olympic athletes without a coach, with a team around them managing, like optimizing their mundane side of their life so that they can focus on doing their sport. How come we don't behave like that? So
yeah, and in many companies, they tend to refer themselves as a family. That in itself is a huge red flag. If you ever get into any interview room and they tell you we are a family, turn around and run.
Yeah, I haven't seen a family dump somebody that fast. Hey, we made that transition as well when I was still in the GM role. We transformed the language that we use from, we're more like a family, friends environment to, we got to operate like a sports team. And we lost a lot of people in that process, but it was necessary.
Looking back at your journey in Mindvalley specifically, I saw that you were in many different functions. And some of these functions are really they're not adjacent to each other. They are radically different. You were in HR in your last role. How do you manage to acclimatize to all these radically different roles within the organization?
Number one is it's always a people problem first. So the moment I look at it as a people problem, it doesn't seem foreign to me anymore. The only thing is how they talk and how they work. But you follow the same things, which is you need to have vision, you need to have priorities, you have a cadence of accountability, you need the right people on the right seats in the bus, and hopefully you have enough technical experts in that field so that you guys don't do stupid things. So I approached every single role the same way. So when I look at that, I would say that the thing that really got me through all of those was, let's be real, I did not want those roles. I jumped into those roles because I saw a problem. I was like, okay, we want to go into technology. I was one of the best project managers at the time. The devs were like, hey, we like him. Can we just teach him how to manage the tech team? So got in, followed the same protocol as interim CTO, and then had to learn on the fly how they did things while I was still following my methodology of how do you run an organization. It was just the technical skill that was constantly trying to catch up. COO GM role was the same thing, actually a lot easier compared to being in technology. And then CHRO, the only thing that was missing for me was let me get very familiar with Malaysia, US, and international labor laws, just so I know that I'm not going to get us into a lawsuit. But it was great because my core team in HR was very good at educating me as well. Like I would have 1 to 2 hours a week where they would be the ones educating me on like, why do we do these things? And I think that is the reason why I was able to do that. Into the actual job title itself.
At a tactical level, I'm interested to understand how do you manage those relationships with the people, with the team members that you have? How often do you do one-on-one with them? Do you do a quarterly review with them? How does it work for you?
So since we're talking about a tech media company, so the pace is really fast. For people who directly reported to me, I would be meeting with them once a week. At least for like half an hour once a week. I meet with the core team as a whole also once a week for prioritization. If they are people who are 2 levels men, then at least once a quarter, I would meet with them. And then more importantly, I must meet more with my co-peers at the same level. So my fellow C-level executives, that was even more important for me to meet with them as a group and also as individuals as well. Because that is my primary team. My primary team are my peers. My primary team is not the people who are reporting to me. That is something that most leaders forget.
That is something that most people would not have thought of. They would see the team as their department.
Yeah.
And in fact, maybe to some extent, they are competing against other departments and their peers next to them because they're all fighting for the same thing.
Yeah. My primary team is my C-suite team who I'm part of. And when we make decisions, even though we fight, we come out of that room disagreeing but committing. My own HR team like, wow, I can't believe you guys made that decision. I was like, yeah, but we made that decision already.
It seems very apparent to me the interpersonal relationship aspect is really important from what you're doing right now because you have applied that. It gives you plenty of opportunities to also how you manage the relationship with the founders that you speak with, managing their personal issues, and also on how you build a team. Does seems quite different from what I read in the news. For instance, many companies are going with, we need less middle management. We need less people managers. And we're going to cut away most of them. What's your personal perspective on that?
I think you need as few managers as possible. What you need are leaders who are very good with people skills. I think people who have entire roles that are based on just managing human dynamics, that is not solving the problem. and this is me being harsh on people in organizations right now, especially top leaders. You have AI to help you with a lot of the technical aspects of managing your life. AI tools, automation, whatever, all of that other stuff. Can you please start getting good at the other side of your job too? Which is dealing with people and understanding that they're not numbers in a spreadsheet. That's a tough ask for people. So I would say when someone says, hey, do we need to hire a culture manager? No, you don't. You just need leaders who actually want to put in the effort to be better people leaders. It's a tough problem, especially now. I look at it as there's very few emphasis in a world that is speeding up so fast. Everybody's attention span. Don't want to spend too much time on anything. Human relationships over time. I don't want to say that the solution is to slow down, because I will never tell companies to slow down. But I would just say, get good, bro. Like, get good at dealing with your people, because the most expensive mistake you can have, messing up your key people.
Yeah, on AI, there's this running joke that I always mention to people that AI will never replace leaders because AI can give clear instructions.
Yes, exactly. Like, as weird as that sounds as a joke, it is real. Like, it is so real.
How do you advise these leaders to really start their journey, acknowledging that they do have a people management relationship issue, but they are well aware they should do something about it? What are some baby steps you think they may want to acquire to eventually ease into something where you are right now?
Oh, something very practical is, okay, don't try to renovate the entire boat. Just don't. Like, we gotta treat behavioral change as if you want to have a better relationship with your kid. Like, you don't do that we'll change 10 things about our relationship just like that. No. It starts with like one piece at a time. You could start by, instead of starting your meetings with an agenda right away, you could start by having everybody just check in, mood check. Where's everybody at? 1 to 10. Let me know that. Just knowing that makes a difference. And then you can move on to other things, such as, every leader will have to have their own taste for how they deal with people. But I would say that a regular cadence of, number one, being able to check in on how people are doing as people. Both sides, yeah, like not just them telling you, but you also, they need to know, oh my God, my boss has been like pissed off for the entire month and I don't know why. Is it about me? They should also know a little bit about your mood. And then you can go into like governance of accountability, which you guys always do. And I think it would be a good thing, optional, if people inside the team encourage each other towards personal objectives. It's like one of the things that I will never forget from my ex-boss, which he never had to do, was he knew that I wanted to experience being CTO at some point in my life. He also knew that I wanted to experience climbing in Nepal. He let me have all of those opportunities at some point during that entire journey. And I will die never forget him for it. Ever. If it's me, I need you back here for like a year or so to help me with a problem, I would say 100% yes. And culture is not one big PowerPoint. It's not like that. It is very small changes in everyday life that will make those changes.
Given your skill sets in this area, do you ever miss those team dynamics since you are independent right now?
I do. I really do. I am actually keeping myself open, especially I took last year more like a semi-slow sabbatical year because I want myself time to think. But I am now open to even considering if somebody wants to offer me or has like a leadership role in an organization or industry that I'm fascinated by. Like, for example, I don't want to say AI because that's clear, but say I'm interested in the gaming industry, like video AAA gaming industry. If I have a chance to be a leader in that kind of environment, I would jump on it even for a couple of years. It's something else when you're building stuff every day with a group of people. And I kind of do miss that. And if that doesn't happen, me inside an organization, even fractionally speaking, I might end up making my own at some point. Because why not? Like, scratch that itch. It was a lot of fun being a part of a team.
Reid Hoffman said this well in one of his first books. You should see every experience acquired as a tour of duty. It's like
Yes.
army people going to Afghanistan for 2 years and then you move on to another tour.
I like that. That's really cool. So I'm at that phase right now where I also know that the roles that I can take don't necessarily need to be as time intensive as what I used to when I was still in my 20s, for example. It's more like cognitive load that you're managing now and decision-making load. So many things. But damn, I do miss the feeling of we are making really big things happen right now and this is pretty scary. That was a lot of fun. Or maybe I'm addicted to that kind of
Adrenaline.
cracked adrenaline.
I've been in that shoe before and it is amazing to, in a way, jumping off a cliff together with many people and building the aeroplane as you go down. And of course, succeeding in doing so, it's really a great feeling and to know the impact that you have. But of course, it also brought you to where you are today.
Correct.
Those experience, which is amazing. Knowing what you know right now, what are some advice you would tell the 20-year-old self?
My 20-year-old self? You don't know what you're doing? I still don't know what I'm doing. It's okay. Like, you're just gonna mess around and find out. I think that would be it.
In reality, we all don't know what we are doing.
We all
but
don't
we
know
should
what
still do our best. And if we don't really know where to head towards, I think at least directionally know what you are having fun doing, what you're good in doing. If you do not know what you're good in doing, just like myself, go ask your friends.
Yeah.
They're going to say something that eventually overlap.
Yeah. My identity mentees and students have always been drilled by me in terms of be direction oriented, not goal oriented. When it comes to your personal life, it is direction oriented. And you stumble in the direction. You don't race to the direction. You just stumble around there. It's like, why can't it be as simple as when I do business? Like there's goal here, goal there. It's like, no. You are a mess of emotions, my dear. It does not work like that.
As we wind down to this show, for people who would be keen to learn more about yourself, where can they go to? Where can they find out more about what you do?
Oh, I guess right now, my website's just about to launch. Maybe I could give the link later on. It's almost done.
I could put a disclaimer when you go live.
Because like I'm testing a new offer right now. So I want to see how that turns out.
And of course, you're on LinkedIn.
I'm on LinkedIn, but I'm more active on Instagram. I'm more active on Instagram, primarily because I'm playing around with building content there and I'm having a lot of fun with it. But it'll be Instagram and LinkedIn would be fine.
And with that, Ezekiel, thank you so much for coming onto the show. I really enjoy speaking with you, learning through the journey that you've gone through. As someone who isn't really a people-oriented person, I do get some insights on how dealing with people would really bring about a very different perspective as well as different outcome. It's something that I would really take away from this conversation. And I hope for some of our listeners who are equally like me, who find it draining managing people, who find it painful to talk to people about their problems and listening to them, I think it might be worth re-looking into that perspective for a start. And with that, once again, thank you, Ezekiel. Thank you for coming onto the show.
Thanks for having me.